Okay, guys, so today is lesson 9 webinar in our series where we're going to cover payroll, employee records, and how you set up payroll. And we're definitely going to touch on the beginning balances for the general ledger, since you guys are going to be transferring over from MaxxTraxx to MaxxTraxx, where none of your general ledger entries come over except for your outstanding ARs and AP. So that's what we're going to touch on today. So let's start with payroll. But before we actually can run payroll, we have to go through and set up a fair amount of things. First thing is the employee records. So if I just click on Payroll Employee List, this is where we go in and we set all of our employees' information. You'll be putting in their Social Security information. Now, something really, really important is that if you haven't put in the, the state and the country, you'll see when you go over to the payroll link to set up your payroll deductions, you'll see that these will not be here to be selected. So let's just, because we do actually sell in a couple different countries, let's say Canada, for example, we went over to payroll now, we would have no tables. So a lot of folks get hung up on that. So you do need to put in your country, and we need to have our state. Now, we do update tax tables for you. Just remember that you always do need to get an update of the MaxxTraxx software right before the end of the year, because we have this teeny tiny window that we get to put in any changes for those payroll tax tables. So like I said, we just need their name in here, and this is good information, obviously, Social Security number and that kind of thing for your W-2s. But for payroll, we just worry about clicking over on payroll. This is where you put in your pay frequency, let's say weekly, if they're paid hourly, salary, or a commission, or a combination of these. Let's look at this real quick. First of all, salary, this is annual pay. Okay, and then it breaks down to how much they get a week. So make sure you put annual up in here. Same with hourly, obviously just our hourly rate. And then a lot of folks actually do an hourly plus commission. Or let's look at commission only. When you say commission here, we're not actually, I'm going to clear out my salary here and clear out my hourly because it likes to put its own little amount in there. Oh, side note here, guys, we do have the ability to integrate the time clock up here on the toolbar next to the red phone into payroll. So this time clock that these guys are clocking in and out of all week long can actually autofill how many hours they have for the pay period, which of course can be overridden when you actually run the payroll if you need to. Let's just zero this out right now.
That's for punching in and out, not for timing in and out of particular jobs, right?
Job, right. Now we're actually going to talk about that real quick. Now keep in mind, the folks have to actually go through the time clock in order to get to the job clock. And if they are, let's say, flat rate, which a huge amount of our users have flat rate employees, first of all, to use integrated time, to be able to use the job clock, under miscellaneous, you have to actually say use job clock in order to turn that feature on. So if we have a commission employee, there's actually a couple ways we can figure commission. And this is where we just jump down to the commission item link here on the left. So here we can have flat rate, which is just like the Mitchell Labor Guide, all data labor time. We can have actual hours, which is activated with the job clock, okay? Or we can have flagged hours. Now this flagged hours, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but essentially flagged hours is what they used to do in the dealerships for decades, where they have these little time cards with a piece of carbon paper and little stickies. And for every job, they would write on the little sticky the RO number and the number of hours they say they worked on the job. This is before we had, this all computerized. So they would actually peel off the little tag, stick it on the RO, and at the end of the pay period, they would go through and just total up all those flagged hours and pay them based on that. Now, this is a manual entry in MaxxTraxx, and we'll talk about that more on Friday, because that's when we talk about the job clock in the kit, which is a phenomenal program, part of the program. And the rate, let's just say we're going to be flat rate. And the rate you put in over here. Maybe they get 20 bucks per flat rate hour billed. Now, we also have the ability to pay our technicians on commission. Now, this is of gross sales or net profit, which is pretty rare. I've only set up one company with this ever. But we do have a lot of service writers that are paid based on sales commission. Okay, so in that case, we would leave this at none and say, you know, if these guys get, you know, 5%, maybe 5% of labor and 5% of parts growth. So then that would be calculated automatically in payroll. Pretty straightforward, guys. And I know you're not using this right now, but you see it's pretty darn simple. So we have the payroll where we select our tax tables here and put in their exemptions here. Very few states have local, so that's different. Additional amounts, we actually can withhold maybe an additional $50 per paycheck if they want to. And payroll item. Now this is a new feature we actually put in this past year. We have states now that just have unbelievable levels of payroll taxes. They have city and regional and school districts, and some are employee paid, some are employer paid. So I'm not going to go too much into that. I'll probably have to do some training videos on that. They're pretty involved, and they're very unique. For you guys, actually, Michigan and Georgia, I don't think you actually have any of those unique ones. Pretty much it's New Jersey and Pennsylvania and Ohio and Washington State that gave us some challenges this last year. But these are all custom. And these are not updated by us on those annual tax tables. When we update tax tables, we're updating, of course, the federal tax table, SPUTA, and any associated limits. Of course, Social Security and Medicare in the background in the limits. And then at the state level, we only do the state income tax payroll. So disability, unemployment insurance, forgive me, all is done manually by the shop. We're going to look at that in just a moment. And then default amounts. Now these are deductions. Like this one says a child support garnishment. I could have a 401k, IRA, loan repayment. I see this one a lot. They want to take 25 bucks a week out of their payroll in order to pay their bill at the shop. We see it a lot. So that's where this would go in here. Your health insurance here, for example, I have it labeled as health insurance. This one is dental insurance. So these are all custom set in the beginning. Now this is all done in a separate setups area. And we help you with this if you guys do want to bring any of your payroll in-house. So any questions on this? Again, I'm kind of going to run through this quickly. Okay. That is done for each individual employee. Now, in order for this to be the correct label, let's say child support service over here, okay, we need to, or any of these payroll items here, we need to go into setups. So let's look at that. So under setups, we have, under accounting and payroll, first, we have default account posting. And as I've told you guys, most of the time we don't really fool around with this, but we talked about this briefly on Monday. Under payroll wages, this is usually left to its default. We don't want to change these too much because a lot of this flows in the background. The holiday pay is going to go to its own, area. Overtime goes to its own area. You guys can see that. So we don't really want to change our GL account numbers. Now, payroll wages for user definable. Now, this is income. This is income that may be particular to your state. Now, deduction, same thing. We really don't want to change a lot of these things because you can see they go to their own GL accounts. This is an accrual or impound account for your unemployment tax on the federal level. This is the part of it that is an expense to the shop. So you can see these, you don't typically want to change around too much, okay? But these we do. These we change all the time. Payroll deductions, these are definable because people have garnishments and they have uniforms maybe, health insurance, dental insurance, child support, any kind of wage garnishment we put in here. So that's why we have a bunch of these. Now, the interesting thing about these is that the four on top are cafeteria. These are pre-tax okay? And we also have the ones down below. These are all completely post-tax, okay? So and there's a reason for that. And we also have, let's see, where's my other spot here? Let's see where it's at. Oh, 401k and IRA. Now these you can set up in the individual employee's a record to say, I want to take this much out for 401k, the dollar amount or a percentage. And same for IRA, we can just deduct a certain amount every payroll. And we really wouldn't want to change where this goes, but we can assign it to its own separate GL account. But you can see there's only 2 fields for this in the payroll form. Okay, the important part about this gets a little bit tricky, is that what's taxable, what's subject to Social Security and medical or Medicare taxes, and what isn't, and what's subject to state and federal income taxes. And we have this on our website. This document here kind of talks about the different fields. Okay, so you guys will recognize this in the payroll here at the bottom. You're going to see these things, and these, of course, can all be edited or set up as the default amounts in the employee record. Now, not all states follow this exactly. In Pennsylvania, I think it is, 401k is separate, subject to state income tax if it's a 401k. What's nice is our tax tables done in the background every year know that. So if you put it in this 401k box and your state says state income tax is collected on a 401k, it's taken care of in the background. But this is a general guideline for you to work with your accountant to get this set up. Now, 401k, a simple IRA would go under 401k because it's not subject to federal and state income tax withholding in most states. Now, the Roth IRA, called a Roth IRA, goes in the standard IRA box. It's subject to all taxes, but that's something at the end of the year your employees actually submit in their taxes to report that. It's a little bit tricky, but once they get it set up the first time, piece of cake. So this is available under the archive webinar section in case you guys are interested. We have a couple, examples up here, like we now have health savings account, all this kinds of stuff. So like I said, once it's set up the first time, it's pretty straightforward. Any questions on this stuff, guys? Am I losing you, or is this just kind of making sense?
Real quick question with overtime.
Yeah.
I didn't see a function for that.
It's in the Run Payroll, and I just made a note.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah, you bet.
Good deal.
Okay, so that's the first thing. And once you set that up for the first time, you never have to change that again under default account postings. Now, every year, though, you may have to go into company payroll and change this. Company payroll, this is where your state unemployment tax rate, of course, changes every year. And the limits, again, are calculated in the background, but you still have to put your personal rate in there. Same as state disability, and not all states have state disability insurance. That, again, is set your rate at this level, but the limits, if there are any, some states don't have a limit, interestingly enough, is set in the background. And then under here, like in California, we have employment training tax, and it's 0.01%. Now this is set up here in a particular, I'll show you the area where we do the custom setup. This is set up in the background to show up on this list. And again, there are states with all sorts of these custom payroll tax deductions, or payroll taxes that the employee has to pay or the employer has to pay, or both. If they're employer paid, they show up on this list. Workers' comp, employer, shows up on this list. I remember creating these and coming to this screen and saying, where the heck are they? Well, they were employee paid, so they actually show up in the employee record. Again, we run through all of this with you guys if you, when we first set this up, so we'll definitely help you go through the whole process. This technician commission, overtime formula, and service rider here up in the top here, guys, we really don't have to use these anymore because we have this new feature, okay? But it's something that's maybe under development for like progressive pay scales down the road. MaxxTraxx does not automatically calculate overtime, and this might be what you were talking about, Amanda. MaxxTraxx, this is reference only. Hours per day before overtime starts, hours per day that double time starts. This is reference only. All of the time card hours get thrown into regular time. And when you run payroll, you just have to take the regular time up to 40 and then move the balance down to either time and a half or double time. The reason why that's still a manual adjustment is because so many states are so different, and then they change stuff every other year. So they just, we're picking and choosing where they're going to put their efforts. So we actually, I'll show you how that works, but that's a manual process. So again, unemployment here, disability here. Any custom payroll calculations, let's see, are under other payroll deduction items. It's a wizard. Now this wizard, look at all these ones I've got 3 examples here for employee. I've got 4 for the company. So these 3 that are selected or paid by the employee actually show up in the employee record. You have to select that under that payroll deductions field. These show up on the screen we're just on. We could choose from any of these. Okay, this is just a place where you can hold them. And you obviously, I've got a duplicate here. I can delete them. So you can edit this list. But this is where we put in all that custom stuff, which again, I don't know if you guys actually have in your 2 particular states. So pretty much, again, setups that you do employee, you probably want to go through and change your default account postings first, so your categories are correct. And then jump into payroll, company payroll, and put those in, the standard unemployment and FDI, disability. Anything custom you would calculate here. You'd enter in that whole, through the wizard, whatever your particular custom tax deduction needs to be, either payroll for the company or payroll for the employee. In fact, you probably want to do this first so that it shows up under the company payroll here. And then you would go back into payroll, into the employee, and go in and select, again, under payroll items. Oh, there's that Canadian one. This is one that we do. Maybe there's another one. We also have worker comp paid by the employee. Once this is done, one more important thing, if you're starting this January 1, nothing to worry about. But if you start any other paycheck other than January 1st, you have to go into setup, accounting and payroll, beginning payroll records. Now, honestly, this can be a little bit overwhelming. There's a lot of data entry. It just takes time. So what we would do is for each employee, we click add, pick your employee, select them, and you'd have this form. And this is beginning payroll balances for Tom, Canada, okay? Most of the time, the way that we do this is just take a quarter worth of wages and deductions and taxes at a time and enter it in by quarter. And then if you're mid-quarter, just put in the last payroll date. Let's say we're not even through the first quarter, for example. Let's say we just got through maybe March 4th on our payroll. Let's say we're already into 2012. So we would put, let's say March 9th. We would put it through the last pay date for that quarter. And what this does is, again, you put in the regular time. This is all the income up on the upper left, all the different kinds of income that you can have. Maybe you have your techs are paid on commission or whatever. They're paid flagged hours, whatever it is. And they maybe got some holiday pay and vacation pay up here. And then in the lower half are our different deductions. So this is where you get this off of your year-to-date stub. So, of course, you got all these things: federal tax, Social Security, Medicare, state tax, disability, unemployment, and federal. You probably are going to fill in every last one of these. If your state has other stuff, that's where you click on other deductions. And you can see that's why we select it first in the employee record, so you even have a place to edit, a place to actually fill in the amount. That's why we set it up first before we get to this screen. 401k, year-to-date, IRA, year-to-date, this kind of stuff. Then we usually have, your health and your dental over here, maybe even up here, child support or uniforms, maybe a tool account. So all this is filled in by quarter. And the reason why we do it by quarter is so our 941 reports are correct in the system. Honestly, there are some people, I think I've only known 2 shops in history, they actually filled out this form for every single paycheck they did for their payroll, for their employees. And that way you do get a payroll, employee payroll report that, has all the detail. I think this company, one of the companies paid bi-weekly, one company paid semi-monthly, so it wasn't too bad, but still, that's a lot of data entry. So my suggestion is just go to each quarter through the last pay date of the last quarter. And why is this so important, guys? Well, first of all, the other important part is this is how much the employer, FICA is actually Social Security, how much has the employer withheld for unemployment, federal unemployment and state unemployment. Why? Because these have limits. So if we didn't put in how much they've been paid year to date, this would think, oh, we haven't paid them anything year to date. Let's start over and start withholding unemployment tax based on, their dollar amounts from this point forward. Well, FUTA and SUTA is 7,000 and 7,000 or 7,000 and 9,000 in some states. So that's why this is really important. In addition to, not that you ever have anybody that hits, what is it, 109,000, Medicare and Social Security have limits as well. Like I said, not in our industry like we hit that very often. And any other taxes. Again, this would be any of those custom ones paid by the employer. Again, you see why I have to set those up first, right? So we could put beginning balances in here. This also is what shows up on your pay stubs for your year to date. Okay, any questions on that, guys, before we run through a quick payroll? And then this is where you may have, let's say this was in, I don't know, September. I would have probably 1 entry for myself for first quarter, 1 entry for second quarter, and 1 entry for third quarter through September. Okay? Once you put these in, you really don't want to go back and edit these. So you want to make sure these are done really correctly and verified before you start running payroll. Can you? Absolutely. Had a shop that I had to do that with that went live in October. She had a boo-boo. That's not a big deal. And we went back and made the correction. Now, once all that's entered, we click on Payroll, Run Payroll, pick our checking account, and let's say we're weekly. We just hit Next. It'll just say pay period goes this day to this day. For example, I'll just leave it at this for default. And here, this is the important part, Amanda. All hours worked will be put into the regular time field, so it's in red. If the employee has overtime, you'll need to move the overtime hours from the regular time field into the overtime or double time field. Again, we don't have that automated. So let's just for fun run through everybody. Everybody's selected. And this is the default. For example, Paul Bartlett is set up on flat rate hours, but I don't have any for him. This would normally be calculated automatically based on what closed, what ROs were posted and paid for the period. So it could say something like, I don't know, maybe he did 42 hours this week because he really beats the clock. And it would show during this pay period, the ROs, of course, none of these are for this current pay period, or else it would show up. This obviously is future pay periods. I think this is running, what do I have, the 15th to the 22nd. So you can see I don't have anything that closed. That's why they're not showing up, but they show up in green when it's for that pay period. And you can always check or uncheck to pay from a previous period if something changed. And then this automatically is calculating your income down here. These are all my automated deductions. Every last one of these can be overwritten, which is cool if you have a payroll service, because they may be off by a few pennies or a few dollars, because there's a couple different ways of calculating payroll taxes. That there's different methodologies, and MaxxTraxx just happens to use one of those methodologies that may be different from Bank of America, in your case, Amanda, or if you guys are using ADP. So these manually can be put in here. What's kind of cool, guys, is you may want to, just for fun, take exactly what you're getting from your payroll companies and start this out January. And we of course don't have to do it the first week. We could always go 2 weeks or 3 weeks and backdate it. But maybe we should start setting this all up and see if you guys can match what's happening by your payroll companies. And then you may get to the end of the first quarter and say, you know what, I've got it from here. All of your numbers will be in your system. Your 941 report numbers will be in there. You know, everything, and maybe just run parallel with your payroll companies to say, you know what, can I do this? Can I pull this in-house or not? So that's just an idea. Again, all of these can be overridden if you want to put in an amount or take out, let's say they had something, you know, like I had a loan repayment in here of $100, and the guy's all, you know what, I need more money at Christmas time. You could always zero this along with any other taxes. Other thing to check, especially if you guys want to try that methodology of just matching what your payroll companies do, employer amounts here in the lower left. Very important. You need to make sure these are calculating correctly. And once they're calculating correctly the first time, guys, you really don't have to worry about it. But it's a good thing just to go in and check the first couple. Any questions? This is a part that really applies to you guys. Any questions on this, guys? Does it seem simple enough, pretty straightforward for you guys to be able to pull payroll in-house? Just a thought. Any feedback on that, guys? Jody?
Right now, I don't think we'll try to duplicate it at all, just because time reasons. But I do
Sure.
think is where it would be a benefit in the future, if we want, especially if we wanted to have our payroll done through MaxxTraxx.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just kind of a start. It could be. So then, pretty simple. Usually this is all calculated automatically. And like I said, if this hourly amounts to 48 here, you would just manually change this to 40 and put 8 hours in overtime or whatever your state requires. And that's how that would work. So literally, you just hit next employee. It says there's a gap between the last pay date for this employee and the starting date because I'm on a demo. Yeah, I have a gap of 2.5 months. Yeah, I think they'd be concerned about that, or a month and a half. So just hit next employee. Same thing. If it had a dollar amount, you'll notice this is the negative. So, you know, just for fun, this guy's paid hourly. Let's say his rate. Oh, that's right, Tom. Let's say he gets paid, I don't know, $20 an hour. Next employee. Oh, let's say it's saying it's putting in AR. You can't post this payroll check with the items going to AR unless this employee is a customer. This actually is a new warning. That's a very cool feature. You need to have your employee customer records tied to their employee record for this feature to work. Now we have a great warning that tells us if somebody's tied or not tied to their record. Just need to set that up in the beginning. If you guys think there is a possibility that down the road you'll want to run, number one, run payroll in-house, and number two, be able to deduct something out of their paycheck in order to pay off their shop account, let me know. So when we do setup, you know, the first week of January, you need to actually delete the employee record that comes over from MaxxTraxx and recreate it from their customer record. It's pretty simple to do, especially if you guys aren't going to worry about payroll right away. But we like to get that done during our initial setups after the conversion. That way they're linked together. Okay? And then same thing, this is already calculated. You guys see, this is pretty darn simple. We just buzz right on through. Here's another one that's negative. This is obviously set up wrong. I can just hit skip employee and next employee, and it says, would you like to print your payroll checks now? I could say yes, and it'll ask me to verify my starting check number, or just say no, and it puts it in checks and queue. And it says, would you like to enter more payroll records? No, I'm good. So now those payroll checks are in your print checks and queue. Pick your account, and here's my payroll checks. And I can just hit print and start printing them. Now, the other thing, let's say you guys do electronic or auto debit in for their paychecks. Now, you may still want to print this out so you have a stub, and they'll just be on plain paper. Or you can just say, I'm going to go into my check register, and these checks are actually on the check register. They just don't have a number. See the number column? because maybe mine are EFT. So I'll just go through and say, I'm not going to print this. It was an electronic funds transfer. And it's always going to say you have a duplicate check number because I have a kabillion EFT check numbers because I use EFT all the time. Same thing. You're just not going to print it and put EFT. Now, if you guys run into a boo-boo and one of these are wrong, no big deal. If you were, if you were to delete this, if I hit the delete key, whoop, it's gone. It's not in their payroll record anymore as a transaction. It's not in your accrual accounts for all your taxes. Once you hit that delete of that item on your check register, gone. And any boo-boos are all reversed in the background. Nothing to do. Frankly, I have a lot of people in the beginning that run a lot of paychecks. And sometimes they run 2 or 3 per pay period. And they're like, wow, what did I do? I said, no big deal. People do it all the time. And we'll just clean them out. It's not a big deal. This is just wondrous compared to what we had to go through in MaxxTraxx. I just love it. So I wanted just to show you how that works. So I spent more time on payroll certainly than I wanted to, but in case you guys want to do it down the road, I think it's pretty important. So we cover payroll, the employee records. Now let's talk about setting up beginning balances. If we click on Setup and go to Accounting Payroll, you'll see we have Enter Beginning General Ledger Balances. Now the function of this is to enter a beginning balance one chart of account at a time. And definitely, as soon as you guys do your data conversion,
I'm doing well. I understand you were
asking for, sorry guys, hold on a second. Right before you start putting stuff into your system, re-entering your ROs from your converted data, we actually are going to run a valuation for your parts, and we're going to put in a beginning general ledger balance for your 13,000 account. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the date. Now we can't do a future date. We can do a previous date. So in your case, just after your conversion, we'll go with the actual date. Run the report. We'll click Next to get to our chart of accounts, and we'll select the parts inventory account. Now this we just put in. You know, I have 28,411 and 411 and 12 cents worth of parts. And you click OK, and you won't have anything that says current balance. It'll say 0. And then we'll just put this in. You know, for shops that haven't been using the full accounting, that are going to start using the accounting, say the first of the year, they're actually going to take this number as the actual number, and the adjustment will be the difference between the two. So you're going to see a general journal entry for the difference, roughly, 19,000 something something. So that's how we put in our beginning balances for each one of these accounts. Now, do either of you guys feel like you have a reliable in-balance in current trial balance in MaxxTraxx? You guys confident with any of your financials that would come out of MaxxTraxx right now?
Yes.
Then my suggestion to you would be, instead of doing this one account.
Have water in.
What was that, Randy?
I didn't speak.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I must have been at Amanda's shop. I heard somebody in the background. Guys, there's two different, schools of thought. You could see doing this beginning GL balance wizard means that we have to go through each and every last one of our accounts, which in your cases is not a bad deal, because you're starting a new fiscal year, which means we're not going to have to worry about anything from 40,000 and down. Let's look at that real quick. We're not going to have any sales numbers until we're starting fresh January 1. We're not going to have any cost of goods, again, and we're not going to have any expenses, again, because we're starting fresh. But for companies that are starting mid-fiscal year, they have to put in beginning balances for each and every last one of these. Usually the date of their data conversion, or they pick a date in there, and if you're a full accounting user, I always recommend the end of a month. And so everything would be like, February 28th, or it would be, March 31st. So make it the last day of the month, for the previous month before what you're going to say are your live financial numbers starting, let's say, April 1st or May 1st or whatever it is. And every last one of those beginning balance dates need to be the same. So in your case, if you guys feel that you have a pretty good trial balance, most of those accounts can be created through not this feature, but just going in and doing a general journal entry. If you do choose to do this, which is absolutely fine, I do recommend that you have Rhonda Lou or myself go through your chart of accounts list and make sure they're matched up to the ones in MaxxTraxx, and then we'll go through and just show you, just double check your general journal entry. Now the beauty of this, again guys, okay, so let's say we would date it, let's say we went live December 1st. We would date it November 30th. We would just go one line item at a time. And you'll notice there are some accounts that aren't on here. One of them is, you'll notice, no checking account. You can't select any checking accounts. Why? Because checking account beginning balances have to go through the checking area. We'll talk about that in a second. Same thing with accounts payable and accounts receivable. You notice there's no 12,000 here for accounts receivable, or 12,300 for employee accounts, employee advances. Why? Because those have to go through the customer records. So you can see, and I know I've mentioned this before, why you don't want to just be willy-nilly going in and throwing in general journal entries, because you may be bypassing parts of the program. In this case, checking account, you wouldn't have the beginning balance on your check register. Or receivables, you wouldn't have an invoice, outstanding invoice, under those customer records. So you can see why we've actually locked out the ability to put in beginning balances for a couple of these accounts, because they want you to use the functions in the program, like the customer ARs or the checking accounts or your payables, because we don't have 20,000 account either. No payables here. It goes right to 20,300. Now keep in mind, what we'll do, guys, is we'll put in all your assets, which are going to be all your 10,000 accounts. We are going to do the inventory parts very first thing. It's going to be its own general journal entry, and I'm trying my best to get a video knocked out for that this week, so you'll have it when you go live. The reason why we want this put in right away is because your inventory valuation report, which we run to get this number, will have all the parts in inventory. There's not going to be anything on any reserved ROs. Like I have 4 ROs you can see in the background here. Once your data converts over and you guys start rekeying in the parts and labor in your repair orders, those aren't going to be in the inventory valuation anymore. So we want to knock that amount in first right away after your data conversion. Does that make sense? And why we want to do it? Okay. Now you can run the parts reserved report and this and that, but you know what, this is the simplest, cleanest way. So in that example, we're going to leave the 13,000 account out of this massive general journal entry we're going to do to set up your beginning balances. So you see there's going to be a couple things that are left out. Your inventory parts, your bank accounts, your ARs and APs, which of course come over in the data conversion. So what's going to happen is we're going to go through a trial balance, put in one account at a time. It's a little bit painful maybe. Let's say we'll do, I don't know, we'll have a CD, and the CD right now has $12,510. And then we're just going to go to the next one. We're going to go to, you know, let's just play with this a bit. We've got our vehicle in there. We're going to put in our vehicle amount for, which is going to be a debit. My vehicle amount is $22,000. And then I'm going to go into my next one. And you guys can see, you're just going to take whatever on your trial balance. This is why I want you always to print 2 trial balances for me out of MaxxTraxx, because remember, we can't backdate trial balances in MaxxTraxx. So one you want to put in a safe place. The other one we're going to write all over. Depreciation. Now this one it would be good. This would be legitimate. Maybe I have $5,000 in depreciation on the decrease side, right? That's a negative asset. So you just go all the way through here. And again, we put all of our assets in, put all of our liabilities in. This is all of our, you know, payroll accrual account, or, you know, tax accrual account, all this kind of stuff. We put in any loans we have, outstanding sales tax that we need to pay for the next month, for example. And then you're going to get to the very bottom of this. Let's just say, let's just play with this one for fun. Let's say we owe them $5,000 in sales tax, something like that. But you see, we're just going to go through all this. And this is going to be, you know, just kind of willy-nilly. Again, for you guys, we're only going to have assets, liabilities. Whoops, I'm flying by my liabilities, the 20,000 account, liabilities. And then, if you know what some of these numbers are from your trial balance, any retained earnings we'll create an account for, owner draw, stock, or capital. And what's going to happen, guys, you're going to have this huge amount left over. Okay? Let's say in this case it's out of balance, $24,510. We may put that off to the 19,900 account. So one of the very cool things about this, and this would obviously be dated, in your case, 12/31/2010. Actually, in some of your cases, it may even be like 12/28, Amanda, depending on when we convert, that kind of thing. Whatever day we actually convert your actual data from MaxxTraxx is the date that we want these beginning entries. So you're going to have this huge amount left over in the 19,900. It is amazing, guys, how once you get everything set up, they whittle this number down. It just happens kind of magically. Now, for some shops, you know, this number could be huge. I mean, literally $150,000. It could be all sorts of things. And that may be because we're adding in a bunch of assets that you didn't have on your trial balance before. Or we're leaving out a bunch of assets that have been long depreciated, and we really don't need all that equipment on our trial balance. This is where your accountant will come in. Now, the beauty about this is even if I post this, which I don't want to post it, actually, my demo data, but if I needed to, I could void it. I can edit it after the fact, add some more stuff in. That happens a lot. You'll be tweaking this a lot in the very beginning to get all your numbers set up. But it's a work in progress. I usually say give yourself 2 months to fine-tune this. In fact, I'm doing this with the CPA tomorrow night with a shop in Pennsylvania, and he's been running since September. And just now, here we are, yeah, middle of December, we're just getting his trial, or you know, his general ledger numbers, and that's so okay. And we'll be more than happy, Rhonda Lou or myself will be more than happy to help you with getting these numbers in. And of course, Rex does that too, but we try to keep him out of the day-to-day stuff. Any questions on this here, guys?
Sabrina?
Yeah.
We've added and edited all kinds of the original GL numbers that were supplied in MaxxTraxx.
Uh-huh.
Do those convert over to MaxxTraxx, or do we have to add them?
We have to add them, and that's a fantastic question, Randy. I'm glad you brought it up. Yes, we have to add them. Now, what we'll do is we'll go up to the accounting. Here's our chart of accounts. We can just edit whatever we need to edit. Now, remember those default account posting fields, though? Remember up here in Setup?
Yeah.
Accounting, okay? Because there's a lot of these default account posting stuff here, you know, I'm a big fan of adding as many as you want. You guys know I'm a detail freak about these things on my financials. I love to have details. And in my expenses, I put a ton of additional accounts. And for my assets, let's look at this chart of accounts. For my assets, we have an account here that says machine and equipment original value. I go 15301, 15302, 15303, and I put in machine and equipment. I put in my lifts, my scan tools. You know, if we've got, you know, some of the more expensive scan tools like $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, we actually put those in, and of course, an offsetting loan. Thank you very much. As a payable for all of those assets. Now, I like to break it down. So you can see I'm going to be adding GL accounts like a crazy person. The only thing that I ask, huh?
Do you ever take them out if you think you're never going to use them?
No.
Or do you just leave them there?
I leave them in there. I just leave them all in there. There's really no reason to delete them because it's not like they will show up on any of your reports. Only ones with transactions in them will show up. Anything with balance. So I would rather you not delete them just in case they're going to some willy-nilly place in the background that we don't know about. But what I love to do is, like I said, if you guys want to email me your trial balance, because we like to work with you on your initial setup. If you want to do it on your own, you bet. But we want you to take us up on the offer if you have any questions, just to kind of make sure, because we might have just, oh, we saw a shop do this last month, and they decided to do it differently. You never know. It kind of helps to brainstorm. So we'll look at your trial balance, then we'll compare it. You will notice, for example, I know from MaxxTraxx, because I was shocked when these numbers were different, because I had memorized them, for almost 20 years. Social Security, Medicare, you see these numbers are teeny tiny bit different than they were in MaxxTraxx. So you just need to know where it says 23401, it's 23410 in MaxxTraxx. So it's not a whole lot of matching up, but we usually, print out the trial balance. Again, that's why we have 2 copies. We print out the trial balance, and just with that pencil right next to it, we say, put this and this. I have also, like I did with a couple of shops, we had a bunch of accounting users go live October 1st. We combined some accounts. They're like, we really don't need to have that much detail, and this is a great opportunity to clean up your chart of accounts if you're not using some anymore, or if you want to start combining things, or just handling something differently in your workflow. So we'll talk about that. Like I said, if you want to, you're completely you're free to do whatever you want on your own, but please feel free to take us up on that if you want to do a little bit of analysis of your chart of accounts when we first do setup. Okay, so for you guys, accounts receivable come over, and all of your outstanding accounts receivable show up in the customer record as a single charge. Okay, their outstanding, whatever their balance due is when you go to pay it, is going to be a single entry. If you didn't have converted data and you had any outstanding ARs as of January 1, you'd have to manually go into customer options, create new invoice, and put in, well, this new invoice, my outstanding amount to this customer, let's say, is $512. And what do we do to the other side of the transaction? So the 19900 account. Everything goes to the 19900 account in the beginning because we want the system balancing account. We want to not track that as financial activity if it really was recorded in 2011. We just want a beginning balance for 2012. So tons of things you're going to put in off to the system balancing account. Now, as I said, for you guys, your accounts receivable come over. But some people don't like the single amount. Let's say that you've got somebody, which we had a fair amount of them, that were dragging out, 30, 60, 90 days. If you want that detail instead of a single entry, you would go in, create a credit for the outstanding balance, post it to 19900, and then you could go in and re-enter each individual invoice with the actual date. Let's say 9/15, 10/27, 11/14, and that way, and of course, one invoice at a time, posted to 19900 account. So you can see that credit, and those 3 invoices or whatever will clear themselves out, balance themselves out. But at that point, then you'll have on your AR statement to this customer, they'll have the detail, each individual RO number with the actual date, and it will be in your 30, 60, 90 columns on your statement. Make sense? So if you want to do that, you could do it for all your customers. You could do it just for like 2 fleet customers, or just don't worry about it at all. Conversely, with payables. Now, payables that are under pay bills, because they are tied to a vendor account, all come over. Again, and this is always the fun one, my WorldPack was my biggest supplier. So when I went to pay WorldPack, I'd have a single entry. And you'd say like, 11,500, whatever, for the month. I wouldn't have any detail. So what I would do is I would go into MaxxTraxx, reconcile my December statement in MaxxTraxx. Now what happens? Inevitably, somebody has dropped an invoice or two behind the desk, never got entered in. God knows I must have had a red circle with a slash, okay? That may happen. And the other world famous one, you don't get copies of your credit memos till you get your statement and realize you never received those. So you may be entering in a statement or an invoice or two for the December statement, or entering in credit memos. Now remember, let's not worry about our inventory, our counts, our quantities, and our inventory right here. What we would do for that in that case is we go into options. We would create that invoice, post it to 19900 account. Now, do I know that it really is not being tracked in MaxxTraxx? Yeah, I do. But if it's not that many of them, just don't worry about it. What you can do is you can go back into MaxxTraxx and enter it in. But see, I don't know if you guys can do a previous year posting. You know, after you run your year end, you're done. That's why I love MaxxTraxx so much, because I could always go back and do a previous year posting and just reprint my income and expense statement. But, you know, if you don't have a lot of these, don't worry about it. You could even just take the difference of 3 credits and 1 invoice, just take the difference and maybe just enter in 1 credit for the difference of them all. Maybe it's just a $12 credit. The thing is that these transaction numbers, because they occurred in 2011, you know, you got to decide whether or not I want to actually put in the real deal in 2011, which would post activity there, which you may want to do, because at that point it would correct your inventory numbers, or just do it through here, 19900 account, and then just go back and make an adjustment to those parts records for the parts on those individual invoices. So you know, we'll talk about it. Whatever, it depends on how you're doing your taxes for 2011, that kind of thing. This stuff gets a little sticky. This is why I always tell people, you know, this is kind of sausage making. Setting up your beginning financials is a little bit of sausage making, but we'll brainstorm it, strategize it, see what you think is going to be best for your situation. You know, do we want to actually put it in a MaxxTraxx and just date it 12/17? We could do that. Do you want to just date it, your date of your conversion, and not put the detail in? So we'll just actually take each one of those situations kind of one by one. But that will happen, obviously, when you guys get all your statements, you know, the 1st and 2nd week of January. So hopefully everything will be in there, but not always is it there. Again, any other APs that maybe didn't get the bills in for December, maybe they actually sent the bill December 30th and you didn't get a chance to put in MaxxTraxx. And a couple things, you may want to adjust your income and expense in MaxxTraxx for the previous year. I don't know, do you want to actually put it on 2012? So like I said, if you guys have any monthly bills, we'll talk about those at a kind of a case-by-case basis, because it gets a little tricky. But if you feel pretty confident, guys, about your trial balance, let's give it a whirl. Like I said, everything that doesn't really come out in the wash goes to that 19900 account. So it's kind of a little bit of a mushy thing. As I said, I've had one shop ever in history actually take a trial balance and put the whole thing in and have it come down to the penny. It was amazing. Now, the one other piece that we have to put on our general ledger is our checking accounts. They are not done to that beginning general ledger feature. They're done through banking. We go through reconcile bank account. We touch on this very briefly on Monday. And we add, let me grab a fresh one. Close. Banking, reconcile. Let's take checking account number 4. So I think this is a fresh one. Yeah, there's nothing in here. So your guys, it'll look just like this. You'll click Add Adjustment, and we'll have to manually put in a beginning balance for you. But we'll select this. Let me edit this. This actually should say 0 because you manually use this over and over again. So I'll just double click and hit select. We'll put in whatever, you know, it'll be, in your case, it'll be December 31st. I'm putting November 30th just for fun. And then you'll put in whatever your real live bank statement or your online banking, or call the bank and you ask them, how much is in my account at the very moment? So this is where you need to actually not go off of what your trial balance says, because your trial balance will most likely be a different number. Why? Because there will be some deposits that you're showing were received December 30th or December 31st, and there will be checks that you wrote December 27th, December 29th that haven't cleared yet. The way that we handle those, we put in our beginning balance here, let's say it's $78,1145, okay? We'll put beginning balance. And then what will happen is we'll actually clear it. Ending statement balance, and this is if your statements go to the end of the month. Gosh, I hope so. It's such a pain when they don't. Then you would put in this amount. Here's the difference of 0. This is our ending statement balance. And we would say post or save and post. It'll ask us our date. Well, this is how much we had at the end of the month. And then what will happen is it'll say up here on the very top opening statement balance where it says 0. At that point, I'm just going to hit cancel. It'll say 781145 up above where it says opening statement balance. And then you're going to have, you know, all through here, all your January activity. So what happens when you see 1 or 2 checks start clearing, January 2nd and 3rd, and they actually are written in December? No, go to the right, you can just go to the write a check feature and put it off to whoever it really went to. Put the actual, let's say, Department of Revenue. Let's say it actually was written in December, right? Let's say it was $3,500 or something. It'll come out of the checking account, but it goes to the $19,900. Okay, so any checks written before December 31st. Why? Because we already dispersed them in December in 2011. So we don't want to disperse them to an expense account again. So if they cleared in January but were written in December, we're just going to put them off to your system balance account. So you're going to have a handful of those. Those come through. Frankly, if it were me, I just worried until I got my bank statement in January, or for January at the beginning of February, and enter it then. But you guys all know about my story about my check register not being accurate for January. But if you want to know what your checking account balances are, you know, in January, go to online banking and see what would have cleared. That you guys know, you'll know from your MaxxTraxx, you know, what did I write in December that actually didn't clear in January, or until January. Same thing for your deposit. You may have 1 or 2 deposits that kind of cross that chasm there, right? They actually are recorded as deposits, recorded as income in 2011, but because credit cards have a delay, it doesn't actually show up until 2012. No big deal. We do the same thing. We go into add, and it was a deposit that happened. And now, of course, since I'm not going to have a deposit on my items to deposit list, right, because this is previous to 2012, I'll go into an adjustment. And I can use this beginning balance setup adjustment if I want to. It was a deposit. Let's select it. And I can say this was a deposit from 12/30/11. Okay, put in the date 12/30/11. It won't let me do a future one, just so you know. And the amount of that deposit was $78.80, $50 or whatever. Okay, and you can just say bank or credit card deposit from 2011. Now, why are we using this feature? Because it's going to the system balancing account. You guys see that at the top, the $19,900? So anything that's crossing that chasm that actually got recorded in MaxxTraxx in 2011 but didn't show up on our bank account until 2012, put off to the $19,900 account. Again, usually 1 or 2 of these, maybe 3. We'll work with you guys on this as well. We'll step you through that. Okay? Just another thing, look, if I unclear this, I can always delete this entry. Again, love this about MaxxTraxx. If you make a boo-boo or a wrong date or something, you can delete it. One thing to be clear about, though, guys, once something is cleared and your bank account. Yeah, if I view my check register, I can pretty much delete anything I want on this until, see the cleared column? Until I show Y's in my cleared column. See this one? Oh, that actually was already a cleared. I think I've got something. I don't ever have anything in here. I've actually not reconciled my demo data before. But once it's cleared, okay, honestly, can we unclear it in Clarion? Yeah, it is painful to do, super painful. So when you guys actually do your bank reconciliation, okay, and you're in banking, you're reconciling, whoops, wrong one, banking, reconcile bank account, and you're putting in your true blue, what is your real ending balance. Make sure it is the real ending balance from your paper statement, real live, okay, whatever it may be. And then you'll go through and you'll just start, tagging stuff off until, you tag all the stuff that match your statements. If this does not come out perfectly, guys, please do not hit save and post. And people just go in, they add an adjustment just to make it work. Not a good plan. Not a good plan, because if we start, deteriorating our financials at this point, remember what I've always said about the bank reconciliation. It's our great equalizer. Our bank account reconciliation is what makes sure our financials in MaxxTraxx are painting a real picture of the financials in our business. And so if you guys get into this bank reconciliation and you're like, oh gosh, I can't get it to straighten out, I would much rather work with you guys to make sure it's correct. First time, we'll do it for free. Second time, if it takes a lot of time, guys, we charge $65 an hour. But if it's just a quickie question, I would much rather you get me or Rhonda Lou on the phone, and we'll go through this just to make sure that, we don't have a funky adjustment in there, or, sometimes you just need another set of eyes. Now, do we want to do that all the time? No. Will we do it for free, for a fee? Absolutely. But the first time, the first bank reconciliation, we are more than happy to step through this. And it may be we hook up to you guys, we go through a couple items, and then we, stay connected to your computer, hang up the phone, and then you guys kind of work on it for maybe an hour or two, and then if you hit a snag, you just call us back up. We're still connected to your computer. We just don't have it up on our screen. And then we can jump in and answer a really quick question or try to figure something out with you and let you continue on. So it's really not taking up 2 or 3 hours of our time. It's just us being connected up to kind of wrestle through a couple little issues. So this, again, you guys can see is why it's so critical. And we have talked about how do you get accurate financials in MaxxTraxx with 3 types of data entered in your system. Number 1, repair orders that you write every day and the associated payments. Number 2, every single part that you purchase goes into MaxxTraxx, okay? That means parts, supplies that you may not actually itemize out but charge supply charges, and sublet. In 3, everything that's on your check registers needs to go into MaxxTraxx. If you have those 3 pieces of information, which of course includes also you see right here, your bank deposits that you'll do on a daily basis. If you get those 3 pieces of information in correctly with the right date, your financials are, they're golden. They are golden, and they're real time. So I know it seems like maybe a lot of work, but you guys are already doing already in MotorTraxx. But if you make boo-boos, which we all do all the time, it is so easy to reverse those in MaxxTraxx. Give us a call. We'll show you how. Okay, guys, so we covered a lot of complex information today with the payroll, the employee records, the beginning balances, and all the setup for payroll. Well, like I said, once you get through it, it's pretty much good to go. And then, of course, talking about beginning general ledger balances and beginning amounts. One other thing, guys, that you may want to do right away instead of waiting to do your big general journal entry is set up accounting and payroll, beginning general ledger balance for, let's just say that for fun, for undeposited funds. because this amount in the undeposited funds here is what should now match what's on your undeposited funds in the banking, make bank deposit. And when you start out, this amount here will be just within your parentheses in the make bank deposit field, okay? And remember, we talked about we do not use, I wish they just take it off the chart of accounts. We don't use petty cash in MaxxTraxx. And the reason why, there's no features in your daily workflow to take money in and out of this account. So let's compare it to what we do in MotorTraxx. We have cash in the drawer, cash in the safe, which would be undeposited funds, and then cash in the bank, which would be one of our bank accounts, which of course aren't showing up on this beginning general ledger entry field. So take what's in the cash drawer and in your safe from your trial balance and put all of that into your 11,000 account undeposited funds. And like I said, guys, what shows up in undeposited funds here, 78,332 or 3227, is what is under make bank deposit. Okay. Okay. Obviously, I've got some other. I've got some weird stuff in there because these should match. Oh, because I dated it. I'm sorry, I dated it November 30th. That's why. Let's look at that again. If I go to accounting, chart of accounts, and look at my 1100 account. Okay, so 5/30/34. Let me write that down. Okay, yeah, that beginning balance was because I put in the date of on November 30th. Again, you guys see, you can backdate it, and MaxxTraxx will say, hey, on November 30th, you had $7,800 in there. Okay, so 5/30/34. So if we go in here, banking, make bank deposit, and I select this and this, and my amount in my cash drawer, there it is, 5/30/34. So what will happen is, okay, first day of business, first thing in the morning, how much do I actually have in my hot little hand in real life? Then you'll go back, count your drawer, then you'll go back to accounting, put in a beginning general ledger balance for 11,000, and that actually, you won't have any items up here, guys, right, because you won't have posted off any ROs yet. But you will have your cash on hand. So that number, after you put it on the GL, will show up in your parentheses. And this is what is your drawer. Okay, this is what your drawer is in MaxxTraxx. A little bit different than the daily book in MotorTraxx. And yeah, this was a tough concept for me, that's for sure. I really struggled with this for a long time. Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up if you guys don't have any other questions. Tomorrow is open forum. If you have any random questions, join us for tomorrow. And Friday, our last day in the webinar series, is Lesson 10. And Lesson 10 is going to go over the job clock, kits. We'll touch briefly on some reports. And if anybody is interested, we'll touch on the marketing. It's kind of our catch-all at the end. Let's just be frank. My favorite parts of the program, number one, is the integrated accounting, which we've talked about for 4 days, and the kits and the job clock. Amazing features. So I'll tell you how they work and how most shops use them for managing productivity and workflow on Friday. So if you can join me, that'd be great. So thanks for your time, guys. I know this was a tough one, but please keep in mind, you can always review this webinar, look at our training videos, but we are here to help you with this one-on-one until you get this all set up in the beginning, okay? Okay, guys. You're welcome. We'll talk to you on the next one.
All righty. Look forward to it.